Great, and that makes a perfect segue to go into topic two, your favorite game, where we are gonna hit on Super Mario All Stars.
I cheated here, Trevor.
That's absolutely fair, and
Yeah,
I was surprised actually that you didn't go with the Super Mario All Stars slash Super Mario World pack-in
right.
title. I guess we'll just leave Super Mario World to another day for another
Well,
guest.
well, again, I didn't have that cart that had all of the games on one. I had two separate carts with those.
Right.
So it felt disingenuous for me to say that would be my favorite. Like, obviously, that would be my favorite, but I never owned it. So,
Yeah.
I don't want to cheat too much, Trevor. I don't
No,
want to game genie this conversation.
Super Mario All Stars. You got one, you got two, you got Lost Levels, and you got three in there.
Yeah.
That is as we touched on a little bit before recording. That is certainly arguably one of the finest games ever released.
Right, right.
Maybe second only to the pack-in that also
Sure.
gives you Super Mario World.
Yeah.
So let's kind of touch on talk about that, because when we first talked, you were like, I mean, I don't want to just be another guy that talks about Super Mario Brothers.
Sure.
And I was like we haven't had anybody just talking about Super Mario Brothers on my show, so
Well, it's because you
can,
have a bunch of 20-year-olds on your show. So.
exactly, we could absolutely do that. But I love the idea of kind of opening it up to all of them in one go. So what about those games outside of what we just kind of touched on there, of the tutorial, and it absolutely, the first one especially, teaches you how to play that game. What about those games resonates and makes them so special and stand out as your favorites?
Well, first of all, just the fact that all four of those games were on one game on a new console, that blew my mind in a way that, like, you get a new thing and you don't expect to play your old stuff on a new thing. You know, like, nowadays, stupid kids are entitled to think that, like, everything should be backwards compatible and everything that you've always bought should always play on every new thing that you get going forward for the rest of life. Back then, you got a Super Nintendo and you're admitting that, like, all these old stuff, like, that's done. You could keep them around if you want to play them, but, like, time to move on.
To be fair, they also gave you like the Super Game Boy though, so you could just play all of your Game Boy games on it as well.
Sure.
So that, like, Nintendo introduced backwards compatibility to the conversation.
Right, but, but the Mario games were done. Like, you see this new Super Nintendo coming out in this Mario World, and you're like, there's a dinosaur that you could ride, and, like, there's all this crazy things going on. And then it comes with this game that has all of the games that you put in 800 hours to before with it, and you're just like, why do I want to play World when I could just play these all over again on this new system, you know?
Yeah, so your pick is the ports of all these Nintendo
Absolutely.
games. It's the remaster. It's one of the very early examples of remaster that we had.
Absolutely.
Of just porting up games to the new console, to placate all of the audience of the old one.
With the nice little interface where you could switch between the different games that you want to play, man.
Yeah, it's the Master Chief Collection of its time.
Except it worked on launch.
There you go.
Yeah. So, okay, Mario obviously is special because, like, that's my first game. That's my first love of video games forever and always. Super Mario Brothers 3 is special because, like, that's when I realized that new games were constantly being developed and released. Super Mario Brothers 2, I hate with a passion and will always hate with a passion.
Aw.
I hate Super Mario Brothers 2. And do you want to know why?
Why? Why do you hate?
Way too damn hard.
Okay.
I despise it because that's the game where, again, I can only beat with the game Genie, and I feel super bad about that because as a video game player, as somebody who's, like, admittedly favorite franchise is Mario, I feel like I should be able to beat Super Mario Brothers 2 without a game Genie. I'm pretty sure to this day I'm still not able to do it for reasons I don't know.
I feel like if you boot that up in the NES Classic, I think you'd have a better go with it these days.
Maybe.
I mean, well, the trick is you got to play as Peach,
Obviously,
because you
there's
got to
no other
use
play.
that float. You got to
Yeah.
use that float ability in like it is required in certain areas of that game where it's like you can't get through this if you're not Peach.
Yeah. I love that game for being quirky, obviously, because it's not,
It's not really Mario. Yeah.
right. But, like,
Doki.
Birdo is, like, a character that, like, is so fascinating. All the bosses of that game, I absolutely adore. Mouser and Wart and what was the three-headed snake called?
I don't remember.
I don't remember. But just like the thought of like picking up stuff and throwing things, um, there's a lot of things I love about that game, but I will always hate it because I can't beat it without a Game Genie, and I hate Game Genies because it makes me feel like hell every time I even think about, the dirty things I did with it throughout my life.
It's okay. It's okay to move on, Josh.
And then you have like Lost Worlds, where
that was new to us. Like we hadn't played those games or those levels.
No, and that's when I realized that there is more world out there beyond my little bubble that I lived in. There was this magical place called Japan that was making games and had been making games for a long time, and they were holding out on games, really cool games that we never even saw. Like those bastards, how dare they hold
and in
back
this case,
Mario
because
game.
they thought we were really dumb, and
well, we were.
they thought we wouldn't be able to beat Super Mario 2, so they gave us a different Super Mario 2 that you still couldn't beat.
Right? Yeah. So like,
jokes on them.
Yeah. Right. Them and Blockbuster. So playing that game, I was like, for one, it made me realize like I hated Mario 2 so much more because like this was the game I wanted to keep playing. Like it was just more of the first game, just harder levels. But like that's when I was like, wow, there's this, like these things are coming out of Japan. They have games over there that are not released over here that we're not playing for whatever reasons. I'm sure you kind of experienced that with like Final Fantasy and stuff.
Yeah, that was like that when. And it first dawned on me when Final Fantasy VII was a thing. I was like, well, they made like Final Fantasy III is my favorite game ever, and they've made 3 others that I've never seen. What the? And it wasn't until we were in the internet age where I was like, where I discovered, and when I was going to places like IGN, where I discovered like, oh, 2 was actually 4 and 3 was actually 6. So we didn't get 2 and 3 and 5 until they came on like PlayStation 1 ports,
right.
in like those collection discs.
Yeah.
And so yeah, that was absolutely that was a mind-blowing thing of like they were holding out on us for other games and they gave us Mystic Quest instead because they thought we were really stupid and couldn't play like hard video games.
Man, Japan's been secretly screwing us over for years, man.
They've hated, like, I'm pretty sure it's still residual hate from World War II.
We deserve it.
Which, absolutely, like, we really kind of fucked them over. So I'll let them have holding out on games for us.
Sure. Because
that's the least they could do.
Yeah, I mean, but we did get Super Mario Brothers 2, so it's... borderline.
Yeah, no, I don't think so. I don't think that's a kind of argument Zyger would make. Of like, yeah, they gave us Super Mario 2, so dropping bombs on them was fine.
I mean, it's only 2.
No, absolutely. That's Zyger logic, and we're not gonna go down that rabbit hole.
Yeah, Mario Brother games. There's just not much to complain about when it comes to Mario Brother games. Like those old ones, like even the new ones, like there's just a certain level of polish of design and gameplay that is unreachable by most standards of video games these days. Like I said, like they teach you how to play a video game without ever making you feel like you're having your hand held at all. There's not a lot of instruction on screen to tell you how to do things. I mean, obviously, as we got further along in the galaxy and stuff, there's a lot more text and whatnot to explain things. But like back then, it was just you'd figure things out. Super Mario Brothers 3 was revealed in a movie.
Yes,
a movie about a kid that's really good at video games. Revealed Super Mario Brothers 3. Could you imagine that happening in this day and age? Like, you go to see Rogue One or something, and towards the end, like, somebody's playing this video game, and, oh yeah, next week this video game's coming out, and nobody had ever heard of it. Like, that... Obviously, like, they benefited from, like, the lack of, like, widespread internet. But, like, that's crazy. Like, Super Mario Brothers 3 was revealed in this movie where, like, everybody's watching this like, what is that game? Like, is that a real thing? What's going on? And then all of a sudden Nintendo Power comes out the next month and it's like, Super Mario Brothers 3! what? Like,
As seen in the hit movie The Wizard.
But like that game, that game was so unique in ways other Mario games hadn't been. For like the secrets in it. Sure, you had like in the first one where you could like jump up on top of the screen and run across, which kind of felt game breaking back then.
Well, that's another thing in the last topic we talked about, that like the cheat codes thing.
Mm-hmm.
In that same article, they talk about how like those warp pipes at the end of those levels were created specifically by the devs, weren't intended to be like discovered necessarily. It was so the devs could easily get through to later games without having to play, or to later levels without having to play through the whole game.
Sure.
That was like their workaround. It was okay, like here's what we're going to do. We're going to hide in warp pipes that will take you to 2, 3, and 4, and then and kind of go from there. So you can jump to and test the end of the game in a matter of minutes and not have to play through everything else. Huh. It was another fascinating little like tidbit of history where I was like, I maybe had heard that like at somewhere along the line, but it was like
your friend who had an uncle that worked at Nintendo.
Like that was the same kind of like cheat codes were the same way. Like the debug menus that developers put in for like God mode and to skip ahead to levels, it was the same kind of thing to really like, I don't want to have to play through my entire game that I've been building for the last 6 months every time I want to test like something at the end. So it was, and they touch on basically like you didn't want to remove those things because you didn't want that to accidentally break the game before it released. So they just left them in and were like, if people find it, cool. And eventually they said like they will be Easter eggs in those games and they will be fun little things, and we will tell game reviewers about them, so that they can go through and kind of experience the same joy. And they touch on how like it would be a thing where they would give to EGM or something like that. They would say, okay, like here's how you get through this. Just please like don't publish that to your readers until like the issue after you've reviewed the game.
Sure.
Don't put that in the same issue was the deal that they would make with people. To like, it's something obviously people want to know these cheat codes, they want to know these secrets. So like we'll help you figure them out, and let you know them. Just give people a little bit of time with the game first.
Sure.
It was a very fascinating another aspect of those games that that Mario was one of those early examples where there's nothing in the game that tells you like, oh, if you go up above and you can run over there, like you're gonna find the secret. Because they didn't expect that level of like people exploring that. They figured, you don't want to, like, that if you go down below the screen you're gonna die. So and if you go up too high you're gonna die. So they were like, it's like people aren't going to explore that. And then they immediately we all explore it and figure it out and talk about it on the playground of like, hey, did you find those secret warp pipes?
Right. Or the rocking the turtle trick.
Yeah. Yep.
I had a babysitter who came over one time, and she showed me the rocking the turtle trick. And as a little kid, like, I'm pretty sure I fell in love with her at that moment, because I'm like, you just taught me how to get infinite lives in my favorite video game of all life. Like, marry me, please? Like, we're destined to be together. Man, I don't remember her name for the life of me. I don't know whatever happened to her, but like, that was probably like my first love as like a boy. Like this older lady, woman, girl, she was probably like 11 or 12, like came to my house to watch me and like showed me how to break my favorite video game in such a cool way that like I could take that knowledge and show off to my parents or my friends, be like, watch me do this trick, watch my lives go up to the point where they can't even count how many lives I have, so they just start putting up random symbols and numbers and letters and stuff to associate with the number of lives I have. I was like, and this girl taught me that. Like, she was the best for that reason, but like that was kind of like showing me that you could play video games in a different way than was directly implied that you had to play them. Other than that, it's you jump over the turtle, or you wait for the turtle to come down, and then you jump on him or jump up on the stairs. Never like you have to time the turtle in just like this perfect little gap of time and window to where he's just on the edge of the step to where you jump on him and you hit him just right where he's bouncing back and forth between your jumps and you're racking up lives because technically it's in the game, but it's never like intended to be played that way. That was a cool moment for me, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, she was fantastic. Shout out to her, wherever she is.
I'm sure she's watching.
I'm sure, yeah. As a joke one time on a previous podcast, I put out a Craigslist ad, like misconnections.
Okay.
Hoping to get a response back. I was like, do you remember that time? Like, I wish I could remember what I said, but it was like, do you remember showing a kid that you were babysitting how to rock the turtle when you... like, thinking about it now, like, the ad probably sounded, like, super pervy. Like, I was, like, making some weird implications.
Rocking the turtle.
Like, no, literally rocking the turtle. She never responded. Super Mario Brothers 3, though, so you had 1, then you had the joke of a game 2, where you had the ability to, like, you know, in both of those, like the star ability where you could be invincible, the fireball ability in 1, they were just like palette color swaps of your character, right? 3 introduced costumes to Mario, and it's like Mario.
The whole thing's a play.
What's that?
The whole thing is a play.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
It's a stage play.
Yeah. And it's like Mario could dress up as a frog, and suddenly he could swim much better. Which, again, it didn't make the swimming levels any better. Like, those swimming levels are still atrocious.
It made him quicker, though.
Quicker, yes, but almost harder to control because once you got going as a frog, your up and down movements were just shot. You know, you're just making a beeline to the end. But, you know, watching the little hop animation and whatnot was cool. Obviously, the leaf, the raccoon suit, to be able to fly was like, you're going to places you never thought Mario would go without a beanstalk. And the Tanuki suit, being able to, like, turn into, like, a statue. Like, weird, cool little things that you didn't think about being in Mario games up until that point. And it taught you how to play the games differently, taught you how to think about the games differently. They introduced, like, the white blocks that you would just jump on and to progress through the stage. But if you hold down and you wait for 10 seconds, you drop down behind them, and now you're in the backdrop, and you could run all the way to the end of the level. Why? What's the point of that? There is no real point.
I mean, it's another one. It's the same kind of thing. It's like getting those and getting the warp whistles and stuff was a way that they could jump to the end of the game to test late game stuff without having to play through everything else.
Right.
And then we just turned it into, all right, I'm never going to play the desert world or like screw levels 2 and 3 and 4. I would always go and play World 4 because that was the giant world.
Yep.
And
that was so fun.
Like, that was amazing. It was like, I could skip this, but I don't want to skip this. Like,
there's something there.
I'm scared by giant Goombas. Like that can crush me.
Right.
That's a weird power dynamic that I'm not used to, but it's fascinating.
Yeah. Getting the warp whistles and the P-wings and stuff. I remember I would do everything I could to always collect them, right? Because I needed to have them. I needed to say that I got them all.
What? You and collecting? No.
Well, but I never used them. Because, again, I felt guilty. I felt guilty about skipping through the game that somebody worked hard to create just so I could skip some levels I didn't like. I'm like, no, I'm going to power through it. You know how you could, like, unlock the little gates and, like, skip, like, certain levels within each world?
Yeah.
I would unlock the gate, but then still go the long way. Yeah.
Yeah.
Stupid. Absolutely stupid. But Mario 3 was just so special. Like, it just... Man, that game is just so good, man. So good. I just wish 2 was better. 2's okay.
2's okay. Like, 2 is one of those, like, it introduces things, and the number of things that, like, because they even though we all know now that, like, it was not originally a Mario game and whatnot, they still introduced interesting ideas that, like, we didn't revisit for years and years and years.
Yeah.
Until, like, Birdo starts becoming, like, a regular Mario Kart character.
Right.
They were like, hey, like, we
Shy
want
Guys.
we want like a new thing that, I mean, like Shy Guys is one of the things that like most consistently like continued on through the series. But yeah, it's like characters like bosses like Mauser and stuff and Wart. It's like I'm amazed they've never brought them back in a more regular fashion.
Yeah.
In the same way that like that like Super Mario RPG, I'm amazed that they never brought back Geno or Mallow or something like that.
Right.
Like
right.
it's there are characters that were fascinating and fun characters
Yeah.
and great designs that they could have just kept playing with and kept like swapping in and out, and instead we got like all of the the Koopalings from World, which is fine. Like they're fun characters as well, but it's like, why did they get to continue on when some of these other characters didn't?
Sure. Yeah.
It's probably because people like you thought Super Mario World or Super Mario Brothers 2 was too hard, and so they were like, well, we don't ever want to bring these characters back.
So as much as I hated it, the time when I finally convinced myself to use the Game Genie to beat Super Mario Brothers 2, getting to the end and realizing that the whole game was just like a dream sequence, I felt better about all the weird stuff that was happening in that game. I was like, okay, I can buy that explanation. I get that.
They retcon the game by throwing in a little end cutscene.
That's all it needed. I'm like, okay, I accept it. Done. That's all you need, Mario. Yeah, it's special for its own weird little ways, but it will always be a game I hate for making me feel so horrible about the Game Genie aspect. Yeah, but Mario Classic, being able to go back and play Lost Worlds was so fun because it was just more of the original Mario Brothers, just harder levels. Which I felt like after you beat the first Mario Brothers game and you'd get to go and play like the New Game Plus, you know? But like the Goombas were now like the Beetle dudes and everything was just a little bit harder. It never felt hard enough, you know? Like I just went through this whole game, I'm playing it again. You should make it tougher. Make it a little bit tougher. And that's what Lost Worlds was that jump to, okay, you've played through Mario Brothers 864 times now. You've got the fundamentals down. Now you could challenge yourself in your platforming skills.
Yeah, now you got to be a little bit more precise, and really make it.
Like, it felt like Mega Man
movements.
Game. Yeah, you know, like your timing, your jump had to be perfect. You know, whereas the first Mario Brothers game, it was loose. It was very forgiving in your timing and your jumps and everything like that. Lost Worlds, you had to be spot on with it, and I appreciated that after the fact, being able to play it on this All-Stars cartridge of like, yeah, this would have been fun to play as a kid. I would have enjoyed this much more than 2. But c'est la vie. I get all 4 of them now on one cartridge, and that's phenomenal. And then, you know, when I'm done playing old games, I could go and play this new Super Mario Brothers World game that's on this other cartridge right next to me. So that's a cool thing.
Yeah. I went back, like, one of the first times I remember going back and playing Super Mario Brothers was with one of my college girlfriends. Like, she had a Nintendo, and we decided to sit down one day, and she was like, okay, like, let's play through this game, and basically, like, you know, we'll play it 2-player, and so we'll just, you know, if you get through a level, you just keep going until you, like, until one of us dies or whatever. And so it was like, so I was like, okay, I mean, like, I don't want to brag, but I'm pretty good at this game. At least I was, you know, years ago when I was, you know, fresh in my. So we play, and she's Mario. She makes it through the first overworld and then into the underworld and dies in there. In like my life, I'm pretty sure I beat the game, and I didn't. Oh no, I didn't beat the game, but I made it through, and I decided to not like jump through the warp pipes and stuff.
Okay.
I was like, I'm gonna like to
show off a little bit
to give you the handicap. I'm gonna go through and play every level of the game, and I'm gonna play through it like straight through and normal and stuff. And yeah, I ended up beating her through the game, even though she would like hop into the warp pipes and skip to like level 4 or whatever.
Right.
And so yeah, it was kind of like there was definitely some rust that needed to come off, but like after a life or two, I basically like burned through the rest of that game, and she was like, all right, we're never doing this again.
Yeah.
I was like, sorry. I mean, like, I'm glad you're having fun though.
Are you? Maybe.
I hope.
Yeah.
I hope you're enjoying watching me play the game. Just
Right.
level
Right.
after level after level. Yeah, that was a good Super Mario memory.
And those games harken back to like a day when you didn't have to like nowadays we have so many games to play. Like I'll have like 36 different games going on at one time. You know, like I'm between like Last Guardian and Lego Dimensions and Dead Rising 4, and like I'm going back and forth between all these games on the fly because I have the ability to have all these games, and I feel like I need to play everything that comes out. And when you go from game to game, you lose that like sense of like what was I doing, what buttons did which, what was my inventory system, like what are the little nuances of each game. But like those Mario games, you could pick up, haven't played a video game in 15 or 20 years, and immediately like you remember where like that extra 1-up mushroom is in World 1-1 that's hidden, that hidden block. You could nail that jump with your eyes closed, I bet, if you haven't played that game in 15 years, because it was so perfectly designed to be, you know, just right before that first jump, that first pit that you have to jump over, you just jump straight instead of jumping out, and you get a 1-up mushroom. It's completely hidden. It's 100% invisible, but once you know it's there, and you hit it every single time you run through that level, like, that's something you don't ever forget. Like, that's muscle memory that you can't lose, and that's how I feel every time I play those old Mario games. It's like, however long it's been since the last time I played it, I could pick it up, and I just could run through like I've been playing them my whole life, you know, because it feels like I have. And I don't feel that with games these days anymore. You know, like there's always, I have to reacclimate myself to what game I'm playing. It takes me a little while to get kind of back into the swing of things. And if it's a game that I played like last year, forget it. Like I'm starting all over because I don't remember what was going on or where secrets were or anything like that. Old Mario games, I can do them in my sleep.
Yeah, it's definitely very much a product of that era where, you know, you had it was the transition between like arcade games where they were trying to like there was not much game there, but they made it hard enough that you were always feeding quarters to it. And then you've got these console games where there's not much game there. You can beat Mario in an hour, but you have to like work up to that.
Yeah.
And then when you do, you do beat it in an hour and you play it over and over and over again because I mean, especially back then, like that's what you had for a couple months.
Sure.
I mean, like the Mega Mans and stuff. It was you had the time because the game is 45 minutes long if you just bum rush through it, but you can't because you got to figure out everything to get to a level where you can do that. And you have to learn all the secrets in some of those games. To really manage it and be as proficient at that level. But then once you did, it was like, this is like I'm not gonna get a new game until Christmas because that's when like we're gonna get new games.
Yeah, your birthday or Christmas.
It was like, okay, I'm either going to replay this game over and over again, or I'm gonna go take a chance on a blockbuster game like we touched on earlier. Yep. Of like, you know, we'll see how that goes. But yeah, it was the fact that like. There were still a lot of games coming out at that time, but there were not as many games like flooding the market. So you had more time to spend with a game, and because the games were shorter, you just got to know them much more intimately than you do nowadays. Where it's like I can put in 100 hours into Dragon Age Inquisition and still not see everything in that game.
Yeah,
have a great old time with it. But yeah, if I like. Watch Dogs is a great example where I played Watch Dogs for a little bit, got a few hours into the game, was having a good enough time, like finally got the friggin' stupid control scheme like figured out, and then I like stepped away from that to play Final Fantasy for 70 hours.
Sure.
And then tried to go back to Watch Dogs. I was like, I don't remember how any of these things work because the buttons are stupid, and if I want to play this game again, I'm going to have to jump back to the beginning and just go through all those tutorials and relearn how this game handles.
Yeah.
So something like that absolutely is kind of the complexity of the systems that we've gotten over the years. It is like when we added L and R buttons and X and Y buttons and then started adding more triggers and and analog sticks and all that stuff. Like games, especially on like Microsoft and Sony, are way more complex, and way harder for somebody to like jump in. Like it's way harder for my sister who stopped gaming for a while to come back and be like, they're like, I'm overwhelmed.
Yeah.
But Nintendo still tries to keep things simpler, much simpler,
Right.
comparatively. I mean, the Wii is the prime example of that, where it was like, okay, like the GameCube had all these extra things. That was a little overwhelming, so we're keeping it simple. Here's a Wiimote that has a couple buttons, and here's a nunchuck that has like a stick, and that's like, and everything else you move around, and that's all you need for our games. That's all you need for these games. You don't need, it doesn't need to be overwhelming. It's something that like anybody can pick up and do, and that's to their credit. That's something that they've continued on.
Yeah.
But it makes it harder for other companies to really kind of say, okay, well, like Call of Duty needs all those buttons,
right?
So
yeah,
we can't really do anything.
Sure.
We're limited in what we can bring to a Nintendo console because they're working to keep it simple.
I mean, you hand somebody a PS4 controller or Xbox One controller that hasn't played games in like 20 years, and you're like, here, figure out how to play Call of Duty competitively against all these other people online. They're done. They're going to put the controller down. They're going to go back to whatever other hobbies that interest them that isn't video games.
Yeah.
But then you hand them the old NES controller that's plugged into this NES Classic, and you're like, here, play Mario Brothers 3. And they're like, I remember this. And instantly, the two buttons, like the D-pad, like that's all they need, and they will have a fun time. Like,
even if they don't remember it, like it's easy enough, it's simple enough to pick up.
Exactly, it's not overwhelming
compared to it's the barrier to entry to gaming these days is much higher than it's ever been, and it's like you're either along for the ride or you're a Nintendo fan.
Either or. Yeah, so like Super Mario Brother All-Stars, like that was, it was the start of a new generation with the Super Nintendo. There were new kids getting their very first console was the Super Nintendo. Parents buying video games for the first time, Super Nintendo, getting to play these old games. But like, I feel like that All-Stars pack-in game was put in there as like, hey, you missed all these years playing the regular Nintendo Entertainment System. There's 700 something games that you missed out on, but here's 4, 2 of which are absolutely must-plays, that will teach you how to play video games. If you've never touched a video game before, if this is day one for you as a video game player, start with these. Figure out how controls work, how buttons work, how logic works in video games, and then move forward, and those games were so good at teaching you how to play video games in just the most fundamental ways.
Yeah.
So
it's interesting because like as we're having this conversation, I'm thinking back and I'm like, I didn't get the All-Stars pack-in. My Super Nintendo only came with Super Mario World, and I remember when All-Stars came out. So even though for most of my life I haven't been like early adopter, I was, at least for that system, my family was like early adopter enough that Super Mario World was like, that was the thing we got,
sure.
Kind of at launch. And yeah, I remember Super Mario All-Stars being like coming out as a standalone game, and then eventually being folded into like the Super Nintendo bundles, and thinking like, at that time I didn't play it back then, I played it eventually. I borrowed it from a friend, or I picked it up at Blockbuster myself, because I was like, I already like, if I really want to play 1, 2, or 3, I have those games. Lost Levels is the only thing that I haven't played, and is it worth it to spend $70-$80 on that cartridge? Because that's what it cost at the time,
right?
Kind of thing, back when games were more expensive. Or should I just like go to the other TV that still has the Nintendo plugged in and play Super Mario 3 for the bazillionth time?
Yeah.
So there, like, it wasn't until it became like easily accessible that I decided to do that, and even then, like, so I don't even have like, because I was either only playing it like borrowing a friend's game, or playing it borrowing, or like going through Blockbuster, I don't have memories of Lost Levels.
Sure.
Like I've played through them, I'm sure, but like it's and I know through video game history and stuff now, I know kind of what that game looks like and is, but like there's no personal recollection of spending time and time and time learning those levels in the way that there is with 1, 2, and 3.
Right.
Because I didn't have that cartridge myself.
Yeah. And that cartridge alone with the Super Nintendo allowed me to feel comfortable taking my Nintendo over to my grandparents' house and leaving that there at their house with all my games. So every time I'd go over there, I had something to do, and I would just play my Nintendo over there, because at home I had my Super Nintendo, and I still had my Mario games that I loved, and I could play at any time, knowing that, like, whereas you had a separate TV with the regular Nintendo plugged in, I made that choice to just separate them completely, and I had one console at one house, one at another, and because that All-Stars game, I had those games that I loved and adored so much. Granted, I would have loved more of them for the Super Nintendo, like the Mega Man games and whatnot, but having those core Mario games to be able to play on my Super Nintendo, because I didn't have my Nintendo ones at my house at my disposal, made me feel okay about making that decision as a kid to separate myself from a system.
Yeah. So. Ports and backwards compatibility are not bad words.
No, not at all.
They are absolutely enjoyable, even if you like have all of the other all of those games included. It's like hey, it's a way easier package to enjoy all of them in one game than it is like, oh, I'm done with 1, I want to swap into 3, I have to go through and I have to blow the cartridge and plug it in and make sure it works and all that stuff. It's way easier when it's all in one go, and you can just basically hit reset and say, okay, now I'm gonna jump into 3.
Yep.
No, that's it's an excellent choice, and absolutely some of the finest games ever created, including 2, despite your hatred of it. There's a reason they included it on the NES Classic.
Yeah.
It is one of the best of the system.
Yep.
Even if it is a Mario unlike any other Mario that ever came out.
Yep. Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, great. Thank you for adding that to the collection of the favorite games.